Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. And Nick, we might have a new fastest player on the Giants, especially if you're like me and you subscribe to GPS tracking over 40-yard dash time. And you damn right I do, because I don't give a crap how you run the 40-yard dash in shorts and shells. I care about the GPS track. How fast are you actually on the field with pads on? And guess what, Nick? Jalin Hyatt is super fast. So let me get into this. According to, and I'll get this exact quote here, according to Art Stapleton was interviewing Jalin Hyatt after Sunday's practice, and Daniel Jones walks by, Nick, and Daniel Jones goes, "Hey, Art, ask him if he hit 24 miles per hour today on the GPS." And Art asks him, and Hyatt goes, "I don't know yet today, but the team told me that my GPS has been tracked as fast as 24 miles per hour a few times," quote in quotes, so far in camp. Let me give you a couple miles per hour tops out for the Giants last year. Number one was Barkley at 21.3 miles per hour. Number two was Slayton at 21 miles per hour. Number three was Marcus Johnson at 20.4 miles per hour. And then Daniel Jones was the fourth fastest Giant at one point last year at 19.6 miles per hour. A couple NFL players, thanks to your research, Nick. Jalen Waddle, 22.5 miles per hour. Tyreek Hill, 21.8. And let's keep in mind, this is important to note that the Giants have not had any padded practices just yet. So all those numbers we gave you are from padded practice. But Jalin Hyatt is hitting 24 miles per hour unpadded. He's got to be close to 22, I think, in game, maybe 21, 22 range. So I'm pretty excited about what we're seeing so far from Hyatt. What are your thoughts so far on all this?
Let's start with the miles per hour. So This is not a game situation. A lot of these are done in one-on-ones, maybe 7-on-7. So you don't necessarily have I'm going to get my ass clocked if I just make this cut or if I do this. So a game scenario, it's going to be maybe a little bit slower than when you're operating in a training camp practice. But he's clocking this with his helmet and his shoulder pads on. And is that correct, Dan?
Yep.
Yeah, so this isn't just I'm running without anything like a 40-yard dash, which I believe he also clocked over 24 miles per hour at the top end at the combine of his 40-yard dash, along with Keely Ringo and a couple other individuals from the draft. This is kind of crazy, man. When Jalen Waddle was at 22.5 in the game last year, and Tyreek Hill was at 21.8, and the fastest that he had over the last 3 years was 22.1. That's Tyreek Hill. I think a lot of people believe he's the fastest wide receiver in the National Football League. Again, it's in a game situation, 22.1 all the way to 24. That's a big gap right there. Right. So we're talking about elite speed, something we have not seen here on the New York Giants, other than John Ross, who can never really get on the field. So if Jalin Hyatt can really leverage that speed, you're talking about opening up this offense in such a creative manner underneath for players like Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darren Waller, whoever else. And one more interesting note just on the mile per hour before we get into some of the other plays that throughout training camp. Daniel Jones's fastest time ever was 22.5 miles per hour in a game. And that was, of course, back in 2020 against the Eagles when he tripped over himself. But 22.5 miles per hour for your quarterback is pretty damn freaking fast, man.
It was almost going too fast, if we're being honest, on that play. Well, he kind of like lost control of himself. He's going so fast there. But yeah, that is crazy. And, one thing on this, I'll say this. We've talked about this really, I feel like, for 3 years now on this podcast is a big talking point, dating back to that Saints game a couple years ago. I think it was 2020, where John Ross had the long touchdown. 2021. Speed is an incredibly important factor for an offense. When you can get guys on the field who have the speed to make plays in the deep passing game, but more importantly, who have the speed to just get into the secondary fast, it will change how defenses can align against you. It will change the depth the corners can play. We saw that last year with Slayton, the only receiver on the roster who corners were playing 10 yards off the ball on. We saw that in the past with other receivers, like I mentioned, John Ross from that Saints game, where you have safeties playing so far off the ball, and when you have these safeties playing so much further off the ball and toward the back of the end zone in that range, you're going to create so much more open space in the middle of the field for players like Darren Waller to run those deep crossers, for a Slayton if you have a Jalin Hyatt on the field. We talked about this a few days ago with Bobby Skinner, how the Giants used to love to run dagger, where they would have, clear out route essentially for the other route to come over the middle of the field on a deep over and have that space to be open. Marcus Johnson played a lot last year for the exact reason of he could run fast into the secondary. So Jalin Hyatt, to me, if he is in fact the fastest receiver on the Giants, which I think he straight up will be, be. He's the healthiest, he's the youngest, he's the fastest. He clocked 24 miles per hour at the combine. Like you said, topped out at the fastest top speed of players like Keely Ringo. He's going to create so much space for this offense when he's on the field. And that's what excites me the most. Yes, I'm excited about the plays he'll eventually make in the deep passing game, Nick, but those are hard to hit, man. Even when everything's right, the variance level is so high for deep passing game. Even if you're looking at Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, the best in the game, there's still a variance to every time they try to dial up and actually throw a deep pass. Will the ball be thrown on time? Will the ball be thrown over the left shoulder? Will the receiver have the space to not have to slow down and let the ball catch up to him? I saw a rep from Falcons camp today where Drake London absolutely destroyed Jeff Okudah, and then the ball hung in the air for a while, and London had to come back to it. So there's so many variables in a deep passing game, but one thing that doesn't have any variables, Nick, is using those receivers to create space in the middle of the field, using their speed in that way. And that's what I'm so excited about with Jalin Hyatt. But let's also talk about the plays he's made, right? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, you touched a lot on this, but think about this from a defensive coordinator's perspective. If you have somebody who has that type of elite speed, you have to always account for that. Whenever they're on the field, whenever 84 comes on the field, the defensive coordinator is going to be like, we have to account for that speed. We have to play off a little bit more. That's not only going to open up some space in the short to intermediate parts of the field for the passing attack, but it's going to open up the rushing attack. And it's going to allow the Giants to employ the play action passing attack. And once you start hitting some play action balls, say you hit a deep one to Jalin Hyatt, or you open up the field for Darren Waller, now you can actually run the football because the defense is going to be in their mind like, this play action passing attack is killing us. It's efficient. It's explosive. Now we need to also allocate some resources towards that pass and be weary of that. Now you can run the football more effectively. So just having the speed out there, as you said, is vital to success for an offense. And we've said this so many times. I feel like we're beating a dead horse. Giants sucked last year at creating explosive plays, dead last in the league. Add a guy like Jalin Hyatt, not just because of Jalin Hyatt's speed, you're going to create those explosive plays, but his presence, his mere presence of being out there is going to create explosive plays for his teammates.
Yeah, especially if he's already the fastest player. I mean, let's just break this down to the most basic level of it, right? Thinking about it from a Stratomatic, nobody knows that reference, but from in your head, just looking at it like a chessboard, right? If you have these safeties in these corners playing closer to the line of scrimmage because they don't respect the deep ball, and most importantly, because they don't respect any of the receivers' speed to get out there, you have corners who are now closer to the line of scrimmage. You have safeties who are now closer to the line of scrimmage. Well, now your run game is going to be harder to pull off, right? And now your quick passing game is going to be harder to pull off because these corners are sitting right on there and because the safeties are right there once these receivers turn up the field. But when you can start to do what Nick said, work a play action game, run dagger, run all these routes that have these receivers, and this is not we're not breaking anything new. Sean Payton's literally made one of the best offenses in football in New Orleans by doing this exact thing. He used to have guys like Devery Henderson just every single play running those routes, getting deep, running all the way into the secondary. So the safeties would have to play further off the ball. And so they can open up the middle of the field. Chiefs have done this a lot too. Andy Reid's system to open up that middle of the field for Travis Kelce. And so now we're going to have the exact same type of thing that we weren't able to have last year, except for the rare times Darius Slayton was on the field. And even then, you need more speed than that. You want two guys really who can have these corners play off the ball and these safeties play off the ball. So that's really the thing I'm most excited about right now with Jalin Hyatt. And then today in practice, as we're recording this on Sunday, he caught a 65-yard touchdown from Tyrod Taylor where, I don't see the full play, Nick, and I'm not sure if you did, but it looked like Jalin Hyatt had a shit ton of space there behind the secondary. He almost slowed down to catch that ball, and I don't think it was that type of thing. Tyrod Taylor kind of led him. He put up a big air ball. He threw it up with a lot of air, kind of like a Russell Wilson type long pass. Wilson kind of throws those moon type balls with throw it out into space, lead the receiver, but put a lot of air under it. That was kind of the throw from Taylor, and Jalin Hyatt's kind of just letting that thing come right in, not a DB in sight, and then houses that thing for 65. And that's the real, that's the variance side of it. That's the pinnacle of it. You're not going to get that every time. Sometimes he's just going to be out there creating space for other players. But there's also going to be times where the safety doesn't get there in time or the corner misses off the snap of the jam or anything like that. And Hyatt's wide open. And if the quarterback can see him on those plays, now we're talking about a game where the Giants are 17-14 grinding through a game. Now it's 24-14 in a snap like that, one play. And so it's really exciting right now, I think, what we're seeing from Hyatt early on.
Absolutely. And I think he's going to, as Brian Dable said, continue to grow within the offense, continue to develop, he's going to find his way into some first team snaps. Now, first team snaps, second team snaps, when it comes to game day, it's just going to be situational football. There's going to be times where Jalin Hyatt is out there, maybe to create the space, maybe to actually threaten, because you're going to need, and really the meat and potatoes of this is we need Daniel Jones to actually make those throws when they present themselves. Like right now in training camp, Tyron made that throw. I get it. But still, right now in training camp, there's no pressure. 7-on-7. You have Dane Belton, who was maybe the middle of the field closed safety on that play that you were referring to. I don't know if Jalin Hyatt came from the opposite side of the field. I don't know if he ran a post corner, a poco type of route. It's really hard to tell. You can't see him on the screen. But either way, it's going to be different when the pass rusher is in your face and you have a safety throw or a check down. And we need Daniel Jones, as we've said, to actually take those shots when they present themselves. As Brian Daboll said, I think 2 days ago, maybe in his press conference, he doesn't want Daniel Jones to force it, right? That's what he said. He doesn't want him to force it. But at the same time, we need Daniel Jones to take those shots when they are there. So that's not breaking any new ground. It's something we've kind of been talking about a lot. There's the other play that Jalin Hyatt had against Rodarius Williams on the crossover type of release, where he creates the separation on the fade and then adjusts his body to the back shoulder throw. I'm not really sure what quarterback placed it there, but that was a really smooth release and route. Again, one-on-one, Rodarius Williams is in such a terrible position to make a play on the football because it's a one-on-one. He was in an inside shade, got influenced toward the inside, giving up the outside shoulder, allowing Jalin Hyatt to run that fade, but still smooth and nice crossover release from Jalin Hyatt.
That's a great point. That was another good clip because we know he has the deep speed already. That we saw at the combine, that we saw on his tape. But those releases, those smooth, the ability to get in and out of his breaks, he said, I have that. We saw some of it at Tennessee, but a lot of it was just, that system. It allowed free releases. But, if he's going to be able to start winning off the line of scrimmage with those releases, that's when he becomes the complete package total receiver, the guy who, works his way so far up the depth chart where you don't take him off the field during the regular season, which is still a possibility. Maybe it's in like the percentile chances of 2%, 5% chance that he's like an every down guy this year, but it's not impossible if he starts to win early like that.
What I'm looking forward to, and we haven't seen this yet, and maybe by the time the listeners are hearing this, we have Deonte Banks against Jalin Hyatt. That's what I'm looking forward to. I want to see Jalin Hyatt do this against not Rodarius Williams. I want to see him do this against some of the top cornerbacks on the team.
That's a great point. And we'll see that, I think, as we move through camp, because as Brian Daboll said, he'll start to earn those first team reps, and we're excited about it for sure.